Welcome back to another North Carolina Tar Heels football recruiting podcast right here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our rapidly growing YouTube channel that is called Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting, Miss Deana King. And Deana, the last couple of weeks has been explosive for Carolina football, really last month, because we did a podcast in the beginning of June, and you said it's going to take off. Everything's going to take off. They're going to get a flurry of commits at some point late June, going into early July. You were 100% right. Overall, 14 kids now committed to North Carolina's class of 2023. Tad Hudson committed last year on the last day of July and was the only dude until May when Nolan McConnell committed, the offensive lineman from Virginia. Then Joel Starling's a three-star kid from Benedictine High School in Richmond, Virginia. Then Caleb LaValle, and then Caleb Cost and Julian Randolph. And the thing just took off. They went through a period there. What was it? 9 commits in 9 days, something like that. So what we're going to do here in this podcast, we're going to talk with Deana about all that, the rush that just occurred and the rush that isn't entirely over, and kind of look ahead, take you up to the start of fall camp for Carolina, which begins July 29, a little earlier than usual because the Tar Heels open the season August 27 at home against Florida A&M. There would have only a few teams in the country playing that weekend, so they get a head start on everybody else. So they start fall camp a little bit early. So, Deana, we got about 3 weeks, a little more than 3 weeks. Fall camp starts, ACC kickoff in 2 weeks, but there's still going to be more activity, even though right now is a dead period. So very quickly, let's go back. The flurry of 9-9. You didn't say 9-9, but you said a lot were going to come.
Yeah, I look back. Julian Randolph committed around I believe it was June 15th.
14, yeah.
June 14th. And at that time, I mean, a lot of North Carolina fans that cover recruiting was like, what is going on? You know, Notre Dame's got 15, 16. Ohio State's got 14. Clemson, all these teams have got all these, and North Carolina was sitting there with like 6 and every 5 or 6.
He was the 6th one, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, and that's when I decided, okay, they got their 6th one. Let's start running our little feature that we run after each commitment. And at that time, North Carolina was ranked 45th in Rivals rankings. And as of Chris Culver's commitment, they're like 21st or 22nd, 21st, something like that. So they have really skyrocketed in the recruiting rankings, and now up to 14 commits. And it's been, we've been really working hard, keeping up with these kids, doing podcasts and articles and social media watch. We're constantly on the lookout for things. So it's been a very, very busy June and now start of the July period.
Well, of this 9 and 9 days, we'll very quickly go over them, and we'll go in reverse order. Chris Culver on July 4th, he's a 3-star receiver from Maiden, North Carolina. DJ Geth from Dorman High School in Roebuck, South Carolina, 3-star offensive lineman. His father was on the 1993 National Championship basketball team. Christian Hamilton was the big one. He's the highest rated kid in the class of 4, rated number 111 overall in the Rivals 250. He's a very fast wide receiver. Robert Grigsby, a big offensive lineman from the Atlanta area, 3-star kid. Jabron Harvey, 4-star defensive end from right down the road in Durham. Tyler Thompson, also right down the road at Panther Creek, 3-star. Kind of do a lot of everything. I think he might be one of those guys that ends up as a jack or something like that, certainly outside linebacker, defensive end. They get him on campus. They'll figure out what to do with him. Zach Toby, kid out of Florida, 3-star kid. And then Dale, we're supposed to call him Trey now, Trey Miller from Edmond, Oklahoma, by way of Florida, by way of Alabama, by way of all kinds of things. And of course, Caleb Cost, he kind of got it going there on, June 11th was a little bit earlier, but that's kind of going backwards in order of the kids that have committed. Which one of these kids surprised you the most?
Uh, let's see. Yeah, I've got a pretty good beat. I would think DJ Geth. For some reason I thought that South Carolina may keep him home. I know it came down between North Carolina and the North Carolina connection with his parents and everything, but growing up in South Carolina and playing in a really good program in Dorman, I don't know. I just kind of thought maybe DJ would have committed to Coach Shane Beamer in the South Carolina because they had a lot of momentum. And so, I mean, if there was one, one that I really wasn't kind of positive about, it was him.
And you're not gonna do this, but we did know in advance for all of them. That's because of the work that you do. So even by being surprised, or you still knew several days in advance that that's kind of what was going to happen there. And really, I think that to me might be the most interesting pickup because a lot of fans look at the 5.5 rating. A lot of fans think, oh, he's just a legacy. You don't give away football scholarships to legacies when you're trying to compete for something big. I think that this kid's got a ton of upside. Carolina football, just go back the last 5 or 6 years. All of these different guys that were either preferred walk-on. They have, 3 in the NFL? Matt Collins is still in the NFL. Cole Holcomb starting in the NFL. He's preferred walk-on. And Javonte Williams didn't have a star rating until after his final game of his senior year, which was a state title game right in front of the Carolina coaching staff, basically. Then he got an offer, and then he was only a 2-star. So people fixate on that stuff. I think Geth's upside is significant. I think we're going to talk about some of the kids they're looking at here shortly. But if they don't get the center that they're looking at, I could see someone like Geth moving over to center. I think he could play guard, tackle, center when he gets to Carolina. Having that kind of flexibility is really, really important. Very quickly, 5 kids so far, the class of 23, 5 kids from North Carolina. So the Carolina number that people were concerned about, that picked up. 3 from Georgia, 3 from Virginia, 1 from South Carolina, 1 Florida, and 1 from Oklahoma. 4 4-stars, 10 3-stars. The class is not over. Let's go ahead and do the position breakdown as well real quickly. 1 quarterback, no running backs. We'll talk about that in a second. 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 3 offensive linemen, a defensive tackle, 2 DE/linebackers, 1 regular linebacker, and 3 defensive backs. I think they really did very well with the defensive backs, Deana. Okay, so moving forward, let's hit on the running back part first. They're not going to bring in any running backs, right?
No, I mean, they offered a couple, and the Cobb kid, I think he just committed to Auburn. He kind of backed off. Trayvon Webb, he was kind of interested, and I think he committed to Penn State. Maybe not a need this year, especially if you've been around the football program and you see a kid come in and like Omari in Hampton, that is just a freshman. He looks like he's been in the program for 3 years. I told you the other day when we was there at Showtime, I'm like, look at Omari. And so they've got talent there. They have Hampton. They've got the Petaway, the young guys. They'll have Elijah Green, Caleb Hood. If he comes back really healthy, and they got a veteran in British Brooks, and they got DJ Jones if he can stay healthy. So they got some really talent there, and so no really big need. I think they're going to go really hard after a 24 kid.
Yeah, okay, so let's look at some of the targets coming up, and we're just kind of projecting out toward start of fall camp here. I'm going to start with Jamal Jarrett because that's the kid that everyone wants to talk about. It's funny. We did a lot of stuff on him early on to the point where people are like, well, I mean, do you all just assume he's going to North Carolina, writing so many articles on him? Part of it's because you just like talking to him, and you talk to Jamal so much. He's such a good guy, but it's getting down to crunch time. He's going to announce July 19th. He's been at Carolina a number of times. He was there at Showtime, but he wasn't participating. Very, very big kid. He is huge. really, really big. Adam Friedman, one of our national guys, was at Showtime and took a picture of him with some other current players and said, okay, who's the college guy and here, who's the high school guy? And it's the biggest dude there. So I think that Carolina fans should feel pretty solid right now about Jamal Jarrett, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their opinions, but I will caution people. I'm about an hour from Jamal. I'm one of the first persons that Jamal even contacted in anything. So I've built a really good, close relationship with him, and I think I have a great read on Jamal. Jamal is just one of the most, I don't know, I can't even explain him. He has a smile on his face.
He's gregarious. He's got a wonderful personality, Deana. And I'm going to say this because I've only met him once in person, and I kind of felt like I knew him for a while. That's the kind of kid he is. So I think you're around him so much, maybe it's kind of hard to describe him in a manner that other people may see him. The average person is not going to see him in the way that you do, but
I believe,
one time I met him, big time personality.
I believe he's probably the most that I've ever talked to a recruit. He's that open, especially if he knows you and trusts you and everything. He's always doing interviews. He's always doing stuff. So, I mean, I think Carolina is in a really great place in with him. Of course, it's the home school, and it's the first school that offered him. And a lot of kids take that in consideration when they get down to the very end.
We've been on Cayman Keys Watch for about a month now. And I say that because he took his OV, Carolina. And by the way, he's Varina High School in Richmond, Virginia, as a linebacker. He took his OV, I guess it was early when the official visit period started in June. And there was a general feeling that maybe something happened, and we were okay, let's get something ready. We're ready for him. And we kind of thought maybe it was going to happen one day. And then there was a little bit of a pullback because perhaps he was encouraged to see some other places to sort of make sure wherever he ends up going, it's solid in his mind. Nobody wants flips, especially now with how crazy roster management is. That staffs are really working hard. I know the Carolina staff does too, trying to minimize the number of kids that they get that end up flipping. They don't want that. So your thoughts on Cayman Keys?
Penn State and Virginia Tech are really big programs for him. He went up to Penn State for official visit. And, of course, Virginia Tech, a home state, trying to keep him in state and everything. And, some of these kids, they could pop on a minute's notice. I mean, they might have one schedule and they like, oh, what the heck? Let's commit. Like some of them have just out of the blue committed, and we've been like just trying to be prepared and everything. But he's an athlete, 6'2", 6'3", 205. UNC likes him at the linebacker position, so he's one that we're constantly monitoring what he's going to do. Because I mean, there was some reports maybe he might commit around the 4th. Of course, the 4th is done gone by, so maybe he's waiting for another moment to make his decision.
Yeah, that's the second time, just for the record, that we thought maybe it could happen. Kobe Keenum is a center that Carolina's going after. He's from Mars Hill Bible School in Florence, Alabama. I think that it's interesting with Jack Bicknell in hand that they're looking after the recruiting kids that are exactly centers in high school. It doesn't always happen. A lot of times they try to move guys. I know Brian Anderson was one that was recruited also from Alabama, by the way, as a center in high school. So what can you tell us about Kobe Keenum?
He's a big dude, and to get him he's come up from Alabama, and he loves football, being from Alabama, and he come up on that big official weekend that Carolina had, and had a really positive experience. He's supposed to make his decision July 9th, so he's one that we're going to monitor. And like you said, he is a center and a really big center and everything. So he's got something that Coach Bicknell likes, and we will see what he does.
For those of you watching this or listening before July 9th, that is this Saturday. So we will be on watch there. Braden Marshall just announced what his top 4 was it?
Top 5.
Yeah, top 5 over the weekend. He's a big time kid, defensive back from Lake Mary High School in Florida. What is the latest on him?
Well, I feel like a broken record. A lot of these kids came up on that big recruiting weekend officials, and Braden was one. He's a Florida kid, a 4-star. I mean, he really liked UNC. He's got a great relationship with Coach Bly and Coach Warren. He's kind of like what a lot of the other DBs have said. You know, Coach Bly can get them where they want to go because he's been there and done that. Yeah. And you got the discipline with Coach Warren and his military background. So you got the best of both worlds. And, you know, I think Marshall is, I think he's got some schools that are quite away, but then he's got the home school of Central Florida. So I think Carolina's in a pretty good spot with him. But he's going to pick July 30th. I think it's really going to be between if he wants to stay home at Central Florida or come up to Chapel Hill.
Now we're going past the start of fall camp here for Paul Phillips. He's a big time wide receiver from the 757 Western Branch High School in Chesapeake. You've been telling me about him for a long time. And it's kind of a hard read there for a while, not just for him, but sort of Carolina's approach to him. What can you tell us the latest about him, and what is your sense on Paul Phillips about 7 weeks before he announces?
Well, wide receiver, a lot of fans and a lot of their attention were because North Carolina has an outstanding group of wide receivers this year. I mean, you start off with Noah Rogers and Kevin Concepcion and Christian Hamilton, Chris Culver, Nathan Lecoq, Tamarcus Cooley, all of them plays wide receiver. So a lot of the recruiting hoopla was on the in-state guys, but Paul Phillips, he's a Tidewater kid, Western Branch. He's from the same high school as Dre Bly, and, you know, everybody knows the influence Dre has up there in the Tidewater. And when I spoke to him, he was like, yeah, Dre, everybody knows Dre. You know, my parents know Dre. The parents really know Dre because Dre's about the same age as their parents, but he's a great wide receiver. And he, if he commits to UNC, he's going to make that room even more spectacular because, I mean, I think he's down to Carolina and Michigan State and I believe, is it Virginia Tech? I'm not really sure.
Yeah. By the way, there is a stadium named after Dre Bly.
I went by
in Virginia Beach.
I went by it when I went up to Tony Grimes' announcement. So all yeah, right. Everybody knows who Dre is.
Last guy we're going to hit on, and then we'll close this thing up. Cayman Smith. Cayman Smith is an offensive tackle from Wilkesboro, North Carolina. He's releasing a top 4 fairly soon. I don't know a lot about him, so educate me.
Well, he's probably the closest recruit to me. He's probably about 20-25 minutes from me at Wilkes Central. A lot of North Carolina Tar Heel fans will remember that's home of John Swafford, played quarterback at Wilkes Central. So he's right up at Moravian Falls. He's going to release the top 4. And at time of this podcast, he hadn't done it yet, but I really think North Carolina, NC State, and Virginia Tech are going to be 3 of those. He said he's got a 4th one, so I'm just really not sure which that one would be. And Carolina's got a great shot. He was there on the big junior week. The big weekend. All the kids come in for their official visits. He likes UNC. got great relationship with the coaches, and he's a big boy. He had some injury problems last year that kind of limited his play, and so he was kind of like a under the radar kid, and had a great season in spring with the track. He does a lot of track and field for Wilt Central, and so he just kind of exploded on the recruiting map, and really took interest to the schools that really first got in good with him at the first. So I think North Carolina's in a really good position with him.
A couple quick questions about position groups. You talked to Christian. You were at Christian Hamilton's announcement last week, and he said that you asked him, who are you recruiting? He says, Kevin Concepcion. They have 2 receivers already. Are they going to go 3 and that's it? So whoever's left, Concepcion, Concepcion may play this thing out for a while. You got Phillips. What do you think they do there? Because quickly, they only have 8 scholarship receivers on the roster, and likely could lose Downs. More than likely, Green, he could use the COVID year and come back to Antoine Green, but they're going to need some receivers next year. They're going to need to fill up that room a little bit more.
I would, if I was in Patrick Sudis's office, I would probably think that they're going to take at least 3, and they could take 4. Heck, they may take all 5 if all of them wants to come, because Coach Galloway, he wants a stable full of wide receivers so they can run those guys. I mean, we heard in the media press conference where they got all kinds of gadgets on these kids to measure their mileage. I thought I was talking about, it was crazy, NASCAR and stuff. We check their miles per hour. We check how much mileage they have on their legs and all kinds of stuff. So they really alter their practice schedule just mainly because they only have 8 scholarship players for this year. So I could see them taking, multiple more.
So it's also the use. It's also the uses. Josh Downs told us a week and a half ago that he's going to line up in the backfield some. That the long touchdown pass he caught against Texas A&M in the Orange Bowl a year and a half ago, he started out in the backfield in that play. So we'll see. Also, the class in general, you mentioned early on in this podcast, a lot of Carolina fans were really concerned about the class. You heard it. I heard it a lot. And I'm like, well, goodness knows people are going to you about it. They're on our boards, people on Twitter. What's wrong with the class? They're really not getting it done out there. And you had some understandable explanations for why. Part of it was, look, the shine came off some. They were 6 and 7 a year ago. It was a pretty ugly look at times. They were one of the most underachieving teams based on preseason predictions in the country. Of course, that shows you what preseason predictions mean. But also they got some new coaches and they restructured a little bit. They kind of hit a pause button and kind of rebuilt their recruiting approach, handing out a few more offers, going a little bit more outside the footprint. But now everything's kind of coming home. We're kind of figuring out exactly where they are. They got 14 in. Are you thinking maybe 22 in this class, 23? And do you think this class has a chance to finish top 20 when it's all said and done? Because when you think about where it was a month ago, I have to ask you the question, that. When you think about where it was a month ago, people were saying, gosh, if they could just finish top 50, they would have been thrilled. And there is a chance at least top 25, right?
Well, I told people, I said, last year in 21 spoiled a lot of Carolina fans, like with those really high classes. And I kind of told them, I'm like, just, they may not be in that range this year just because it, like we said, it's a totally, they're having to redo a lot of their recruitment, their strategies. But now, I mean, they're sitting at like 21 and they could take 7 or 8 kids. I mean, and some of those guys are some 4 stars. If they had a Jamal Jarrett, that's a 6.0. that's gonna be a big, the highest ranked kid in the whole class if they land him. So, but we try to tell people. They look at stars and they're like, oh, four stars, 10 3-stars. Clemson's got 14 4 stars. And it's just a matter of somebody's opinion. You can go to another recruiting service and they might be 6 and 8. And it's just, all it matters is if Coach Brown and his staff thinks that these kids can play, they're going to take them. And, all the fans can just, I think it's funny because they like to, when we post something, if they're a 3-star on Rivals and a 4-star on 24/7 or on 3, they always like, oh, he's a 4-star. But then you go, and then if that another recruiting service has them lower, oh, Rivals has him at a 4-star. They always want the higher star ranking.
Did you see that? Did you see that someone went after us today on Twitter about Culver? Because Rivals has him as a 3, and he got on us for, you got to support the Carolina kids. First of all, we don't do it. You can give a little bit of input, but we don't do it. We don't. We do this. We talk about it, and we do the numbers. We crunch the numbers. I think people want that, and it helps. It's informative to have that. If you have nothing but non-kids with no stars, you're probably not going to have a very good roster. In the end, the star rating system is fairly accurate. The breadth of it is fairly accurate. But on an individual basis, it doesn't really mean anything, especially when we're getting an idea what the coaches are looking at. That's why I was talking about DJ Geth. I almost called him Ed. DJ Geth earlier, because when they see a greater value, if you're a recruiting service, you're just looking at what you see. Okay, he's a tackle, we're grading him as a tackle. But if Carolina says, okay, we think he could play guard, and he told you he could play center or guard, and when I see that kid, I'm thinking, okay, no one thought Kieran Johnson was going to come into Chapel Hill and end up snapping the ball. This kid looks like a dude who can end up snapping the ball if necessary. So that raises the value. So that kind of nullifies a star rating, in my opinion.
Well, how valuable was it with me and Brandon P being at Nations Ford, and Brandon got that footage of DJ Geth going against Jamal Jarrett. That was interesting to watch. There you go. There's 2 possible Tar Heels going at it, and going one-on-one against one of the best defensive tackles in the nation, and Geth held his own. So, rankings, Chris Culver, I think he could be up there as a 4-star in my own personal opinion. He didn't get to go to a lot of the camps and stuff, and he had minor injuries that kept him. And let's not forget, all this recruiting has been bumped up, and kids, they may want to go on visits when all these camps go on. And you got to look at it. Some kids, they feel like, oh, they're getting offers. They don't have to go to these camps to do anything. So it's this, that's.
And maybe they don't. And by the way, maybe they don't, because as long as the schools know what the schools know, the coaching staffs, it doesn't really matter what. I think a lot, but it doesn't matter. But these kids pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Because when you go to their Twitter profiles or their Instagram profiles, they pick the highest star rating they have somewhere. If a kid is on one service, the other service, it just teammates can have different services. Very, very quickly, one other thing, and we're going to have another podcast coming up later on this month. We talk about signing dates and everything else. But how much of this class do you think because Mac wants to get this thing done before fall camp starts? Obviously, a few kids will announce afterward, but how much of this do you think he wants to get will get wrapped up by the time fall camp starts July 29th?
Well, known commitments, I think I put out, Kobe Keenum's going to announce the 9th. Jamal Jarrett's going to announce the 19th. Braden Marshall around the 30th. Paul Phillips, August 24th. you had Cayman Smith that's going to come out with a top 4. I think he's getting a lot of these kids want to announce before they start their season. So I think July, the rest of July, and before the season starts, around the middle of August, we're going to see some more kids. Rico Walker come out with a top 5. Davian Hobbs come out with a top 5. I saw Davian Hobbs at Christian Hamilton's, and I said, hey, when are you going to make a decision? He's like, it's coming soon, maybe at the end of the month. So, there could be some more that pop, and Mac has said, he wants to get his class in, you can't say signed, but he wants them committed early so they can concentrate on their senior season. Now, I've talked to parents. I mean, I talked to Christian Hamilton's mom. She's like, this is just a big relief. So now he can concentrate on his senior season and help his team win as many games as can without everybody calling coaches, reporters.
Oh, they'll still call. But
yeah, they'll keep calling. They'll keep calling, keep texting.
A lot of them will back off. Back off.
Christian has the option to answer it because he's, committed.
We're going to have a podcast here in the next week to 10 days about signing day. We're going to discuss different signing day options. We talked to Patrick Suttis, the GM at Carolina, which is kind of head of the recruiting, about that, and got his opinion on if the signing day should be changed. It was moved up from February to January several years ago. Should it be moved up even more? Make sure you check out our channel to see when that thing is popped on the channel. Plus, go to TarHeelIllustrated.com. You're for sure not going to miss anything over there. We're also going to have an article on this as well. So we're going to start exploring that and run some stuff about that, because I have some very strong opinions, as Deana knows, and she does too, about signing day and when it should actually be. This is fantastic stuff, Deana. Just a giant snapshot on where things have been, where they're going, and there are other kids. And by the way, someone like Cayman Smith, he may announce top 4 one day and 5 days later announce where he's going, or may announce the top 4 and tell a coach, hey, I'm coming, just keep it quiet because I'm going to announce on a particular day. That's when you mention known commits. Those are the ones that have made it public. We know about a lot of them before they're made public, and we're never going to ruin a kid's day. We're never going to put it out there ahead of time. There's nothing to gain by doing that. So we just get everything ready to roll.
Everything to lose.
Boom. Everything to lose, nothing to gain. Plus, we don't want to ruin the kid's day. These kids basically do this once. We're not going to get in that way. What were you going to say before we close this out?
I was just saying that this before, when we had one of these big recruiting podcasts, it was a lot of I don't say gloom, but there was really a lot of people concerned.
Yeah, and people were concerned. We were uncertain, and people were concerned.
Yeah.
And you had to deal with that. And I commend you for dealing, because sometimes people blur the line and don't realize that we're not rooting for any of this. We don't root. We report. We cover and we report. But at one podcast, you're talking about when we don't have a lot of things to feed people, they're not going to come away with it thinking, boy, I feel great about the way things are going. They got 2 commits and it's May. But right now, I think the tenor is different coming from us because there's so much more to report. There's a lot more certainty. And I think Carolina fans should feel very, very good about where this class is and very good about where it's going. They're going to accumulate several more big-time players in this class.
Yeah, and I think, I expect them to take anywhere from 22 to 24 this year. Yeah. They'll leave some spots open for portal kids possibly, but Mac has showed that he'd rather go the high school route unless it is a major game changer. That a guy that they have to, a position they have to have a veteran in. He's going the high school route, and that resonates with these kids.
Yeah, and the guy that's not going to mess up the locker room. That's a big part of it as well. My prediction, and we're going to go here in a second, promise. My prediction when camp opens on the 29th, I think that they have minimum 18 or maybe 19 commits at that point. That means 4 or 5 between now and then. Am I right? Am I crazy?
Well, no, because we said they had to get about 5 out of this June official visit, and they blowed our prediction out of the water.
Well, minimal. That was a minimal.
We were being a little pessimistic there, but
conservative.
That's how recruiting goes. I mean, I kind of gave hints that there was going to be a tidal wave come once they started a domino effect, and they've got. You mentioned the position groups. They got somebody out in every position group except running back, and they're not going to take anybody. But so there's good balance, and they're getting kids where they need them.
Yeah, no doubt. And I also think this class is one of those classes that they look at as solid depth moving forward. So, and I really think 2024, if they have a good season, 2024 might be back where 21 and 22 were.
Yeah, they're offering a lot of
big ballyhooed stuff.
High rated 2024 kids.
Yeah,
we've already seen it. So
I think that they're anticipating a better season this year. Mac feels a lot differently about this group than he did a year ago. And I think the Chiswick factor will certainly, and that's part of it too. The shine came off. Okay, get the shine back on. How are you going to do that? Win games and look good doing it. So I think that if that happens, then the class of 24 is going to be very, very interesting. And of course, we will be here to cover it for you. Deana is all over the place. Make sure you go to our site, sign up. It's just $8.33 a month. She has a ton of stuff that you can never hear on a podcast. You can never read in a free article. It's part of the premium content. It's part of the privilege of paying to be on the site. And by the way, we have not raised our price since I took this job, and I began August 1st, 2014. It's cheaper than going to a movie, and you get a lot more entertainment value out of it. So if you like the basketball side, just read Datica's post. That'll give you a lot of entertainment value right there. And of course, Kevin Roy trolling people all over the board. She is Deana King. I am Andrew Jones. We appreciate you stopping by.